Earthlings, and Earthlings. How are you doing?
Hello. Hey, everyone.
Hello, Wendy. Hello, Roger. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Benny. Hello, Roger. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Wendy. Hello, Benny. So,
do you know what that reminds me of? Did you used to watch The Royal Family? They used to do that.
Yeah.
It was almost like a version of the Waltons, wasn't it? Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Mariella.
Have you had your tea? That's one of them.
Have you had your tea? What did you have?
All right. Yeah. So you're an aficionado, were you? So I think the first thing that we should say, of course, is that our hearts go out to you, folks. So that's the main thing we want to say. We'll come back to that because there's been no real news the last couple of weeks. There's nothing to talk about in that sense. But it's been a bit of a weird world in the last 14 days. Well, even less than that. So yeah. So we've got a few hellos to do. So do you want
me to do hellos?
Do you want it or should I?
I like to do. I don't mind. I don't mind if you want it, but I like to do it as well. So let's go from the top. We have Jeremy the ape. So Jeremy is saying hello and is says he loves our thumbnail because they're caring at the sanctuary for some free living mice temporarily until the temperature warms up. So, and you have to watch there's a picture or video. Have you got a video of that, Jeremy? Because I think I saw the picture of a video you sent us saying showing their little that little temporary accommodation, their Airbnb. Fabulous. Welcome, Terry. Hello to you. Lovely to see you. And of course, our lovely Debbie's here. Hello, Deb. We have Linda. Greetings, Linda. Keystone Eon. Love that name. Hello to you. And we've got Linda. Oh, no. Sorry, Linda. I was about to say hello to you again. Philip is here from New York. Hello, comrades. And we have Jennifer, spiritual vegan. Hello, lovely Jennifer. Keely is here. Hey, Keely. And Jeremy's got 3 videos ready to post of the mice. So that's fabulous.
Look at this. Philip is getting it in quick. That's quite good. Some of the housekeeping stuff. And with that in mind, as ever, people, if you're tuning in from anywhere other than my YouTube channel, then it's always best to come over to YouTube if you want to take part in the chat. As ever, we can see your comments, but you won't be able to see anybody if they reply to you. And then in terms of just general comments for everybody, we never charge anybody for those because we don't believe in it. So chat and type away as you will.
To your heart's content.
Heart's content, yes, indeed.
And we got Tim here as well. Tim, hello, Tim.
Joanna, hello.
And Joanna. Oh, my lion. Oh, you can see my lion. Oh, isn't he lovely? He's awake, actually, Tim. He's wide awake. And we don't know when Ella is. By the way, everyone, we were expecting Arnella, but she hasn't appeared yet, so we're hoping she might come along.
Nella's a bit of an enigma at the moment. So we've got a couple of ice-breaking bits from your recent social media post, Benny, before we get on to the opus that we come to talk about mainly. And of course, everybody should know, I don't know if I can hold this up because the Essays on Veganism. So who does the covers, Benny?
That's Richard Watts, vegan sidekick.
Vegan what?
Vegan sidekick.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, Richard. He's done the cover for the first book and the second book.
First time, yeah, because the first one is like a lion.
Oh, that's like my lion, Nick.
The lions, though, yeah. And also the circle of life, because the circle's in the mouth there. Right.
Because I do remember when the first one came out, you got everybody to do this, didn't you? Yeah. And I don't think there was the same request going out for the second one, but still. Right. So can
I just say what I'm very disappointed. I think we should maybe make a rule for future guests because last time we were on the show, we had an icebreaker with Jane, actually going into the ice pond. I'm very disappointed that Benny hasn't done that for us.
Oh yeah, kind of as it were, top that, yeah, that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird, wasn't it? A sledgehammer to break the ice. and then getting in. Oh, wow.
She just got straight in, didn't she? No qualms. She was just hardcore.
Well, there's no real point in challenging anybody because nobody's going to beat that, Wendy, are they? So
that is going to be tough to beat, isn't it?
Yeah,
Benny, any ideas?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
No, that's a hard one.
I'm just starting my monitor because I've got a new thing to monitor. You know, my electricity went out because of the power cut, and
because of the storms.
Yeah, my big Mac is blown up or something. So don't know what's going on. Okay, well let's go straight into this. We've waffled enough, I think. So don't know when you posted this one, Benny, but it's not long ago. This is the 100,000 ducks. So this is the bird flu thing which you've been monitoring, haven't you, in the last few weeks?
Yeah, I've been posting regularly on bird flu situation. So, and Trump's just done another load of deregulation where the bodies that should be monitoring it won't be communicating externally. So it's going to be more difficult for them to keep an eye on things. And already the Biden administration wasn't doing a great job anyway in kind of keeping an eye on the situation and educating the public and putting safeguards in place. And we know that when these outbreaks happen, they end up killing all of the birds, usually chickens, which can go up to 1 million or so at a time. And the way they do it as well is quite horrific. It can be that foam that they use, or they can kind of make all the birds overheat. They've got some euphemistic name for it, of course, like environmental, something, I can't remember what it's called, but some euphemism where they're actually just turning the air conditioning off, basically, so the birds overheat. So in this case, it's 100,000 ducks. It doesn't exactly say the slaughter method, but it will be something similar to what they do to the chickens.
Yeah, when they kill other species, that's the contiguous thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the ones who are alongside them, as it were. And so that's how they do the control, isn't it? Yeah, because you mentioned Trump's executive orders, and I did notice that all the different agencies were being told not to put their data out. So I'm assuming they still collecting it, but they can't make it public. Is that what it is?
That's right, yeah, because there was one agency said they had the posts ready to go, I think on Friday, where they were going to report about a few cases of bird flu, but they couldn't actually put the information out. So they've still got the information, but it's just a matter of public education, really. Yeah.
Ooh, look who we've got.
Hi guys, sorry, connectivity problems today. It was really bad.
Hey Nella.
This requires an announcement. Welcome the witch. So are you okay, Nella? Good to see you.
Yes, I'm okay. There was just a problem with the internet. It was the whole building because I tried to go to a neighbor and connect from there, but it was the whole building. So I called them and it was like for a few minutes, but it's back now. So
you're back.
Yeah. Well, great to see you, and I'm sure everybody's glad that you're here. In fact, we've already got a hey Nella, so that's good.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So you're talking about bird flu.
Yeah, this is our ice-breaking thing. So and then the second one is this one. Now this is weird. This is that one about human beings going to live for 2 weeks without flesh. And I've seen claims like this In fact, I had one direct on the street in Dublin. This guy just didn't believe that I'd been vegan for as long as I've been. He had just assumed we were lying. But this person is claiming that if you don't eat meat for 2 weeks, you're going to die.
Mm-hmm. That's weird though, because I've heard a lot of times that humans cannot survive without eating flesh excuse, but claiming this 2 weeks period is very weird, because in many cultures all over the world you have fasting. So even humans that eat flesh, they do not do so, like every day. Some of them, not every day. So because 2 weeks is a very short period. I mean,
yeah, seems like it'd be quite easy to disprove, seeing as it is such a short time.
Yeah, what about all the hunger strikers that has been, in prison and stuff? So, and
do you think this person is actually serious, though? Do you think they're just taking the pee?
It could be trolling, yeah.
You're never sure, but if they're just trolling, what's the point? Just
trying to be funny, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah, trying to be funny.
Because I was struck by, it said, can only live for 2 weeks without flesh, even if they're eating salads every day. I thought it was a weird thing. They basically starve to death, even if you're only eating salads every day.
We're starving on our salads.
Yeah.
Jeremy says he's done a 22-day watermelon fast. Water only fast. I guess this must be the afterlife, and I'm still watching TARS. Good. That's what you should be doing in the afterlife, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Not even salad.
Was that a watermelon fast, was it, Wendy?
Yeah. There is a watermelon.
No, sorry about that.
There is a watermelon fast. That's right. There is one.
Oh, there is one.
Well, yeah. If there wasn't, there should be, definitely. Let's live on watermelons for 2 weeks.
I might do that for 2 weeks in the summer, yeah.
Well,
obviously that comment was so funny.
Sanctuary, they're on a watermelon fast sometimes, aren't they?
Oh, they love watermelons, a lot of them, don't they?
Yeah, this is true, of course, isn't it? Wrong one. Deb, of course, it's quite interesting, isn't it, the way that suddenly everybody becomes an expert on all things nutrition and everything, very quickly. So
yeah, and it's funny, isn't it, how people always will challenge the but it's you're eating all this junk food, or you're lacking in this, you're lacking in B12, you're lacking in iron, you're lacking in this. Always very critical of people who are living on a plant-based diet, but then don't look at all the stuff that maybe it's like their diet is so perfect that they can't have they're not lacking anything. It's so nutritionally wholesome, and it's just that false dichotomy that's going on there. It's really strange.
Actually, earlier today, someone whom I have seen eating from a very well-known, I'm not going to say the name just in case you have YouTube problems, fast food, like the worst. And he's regularly eating from there. And I was talking about vegan burgers and things like that. And he was worried if they are healthy enough. And I said, you are eating regularly from there. You could eat cardboard and it would be like more nutritious, less, harmful. Are you worried about vegan food?
Yeah, the sudden concern for health and nutrition. I mean, it's good to ask people, what is the specific nutrients you think that we are missing, or things like that. Obviously people talk about protein and omega-3 and things, but you have to kind of ask them, what do they think we can't get on a vegan diet? Often they'll talk about B12 as well, and then all of a sudden they have a problem with supplementation then as well. That was another post I put up as well, about it was an advert I'd seen for pigs getting supplemented. So it's either take one small supplement yourself, or the animals are getting supplemented anyway.
Benny, while you're here, I'm going to get our money's worth out of you. Your opinion on something, please, Monsieur. When people become so-called ex-vegans, and often there's a claim, and this has happened to a good friend of mine recently, actually, who I became friends with as an animal rights activist, and now they, for health reasons, are no longer living as a vegan. And I just wonder what your opinion on that is, and whether, because I know you kind of go through in your book, you kind of go through a lot of statistics, and you've done a lot of research, and you go through all, you know, the things, data and research and all of that. But do you think there are times when someone might not get everything they need, or not what they need, but somehow their health is deteriorated no matter what they've tried with a plant-based diet?
Yeah, I think there's definitely cases of that. And there was a blog, I think it was, this entry was called Facing Failing Health as a Vegan, but this must be about 12 years ago. And the person didn't feel too well and felt like they were lacking some nutrient. So they ended up, you know, going to doctors and everything. But they went the totally right route about it by going
12
to
years ago, they'd be dead now, aren't they?
And everything like that. Yeah, well, it was 2 weeks and then they were gone, you know. So. But the blog is called Facing Failing Health as a Vegan, and it's a really good read. If it's still up, I probably haven't seen it for about 12 years, but it was one that we discussed in one of the old debate groups on Facebook. And this was someone actually being honest about it, but going through it and still maintaining their veganism. But on the whole issue of kind of ex-vegans, we as vegans have to be careful not to use like a no true Scotsman fallacy where we're saying, well, you know, they never really were vegan. I'm sure there are cases where there were actually vegans for some reason or whatever, you know, they actually were ethical and didn't view animals as commodities, that type of thing. And for whatever reason, they just, usually despondency or something, they are no longer vegan. That might be a genuine case. But I'd say 99% of the ones you'll see on social media aren't genuine, because they'll just be some influencer who's tried a diet for 2 weeks, you know, and then they've given up or something, and then they do a blog post saying, I'm an ex-vegan, this is why. And it's clear that they never really understood what veganism was, what it entailed, or that it was really for the animals. It's usually some sort of temporary health kick, and they see it as a diet. So I think that's most of the cases, but there might be the odd genuine one. In fact, I'm not sure what the situation is with Bob Torres. I've got his book here, you know, and I did hear that maybe he's not vegan anymore. And if that's the case, that's obviously, you know, someone who was genuinely vegan that isn't anymore for whatever reason.
Yeah, so it does happen for sure. It's upsetting.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, going back to what you were saying before, it reminded me, because I got a question lined up and it fits in with that. It's from page 286 of the book, and you're saying that.
You remember that page, Penny?
I know it well.
Yeah. I've got all the pages written down.
I remember it. Yeah.
Remembers that exact page?
Yeah, it was, I can't see the line yet, but I'll tell you the line in a minute. You said that veganism creates an identity threat in people who make flesh consumption and other animal consumption their personality. So, I mean, are they the kind of people who just troll, you know, kind of silly kind of comments? But, you know, I mean, to what extent do you think that people do invest their personality in it?
Well, that would be a quite strident type of anti-vegan, I think. The ones that really identify. That's the kind of meat is masculine type of person. And you might get, you know, usually countries with a strong ranching culture, you might get those type of comments from those people. So United States, Australia, New Zealand, I'm sorry, but where there's like a heavy ranching culture, South Africa, that type of thing, and a history of colonialism as well. They'll often be quite strident anti-vegans and amongst the most vociferous in that way. And their identity is tied up to exploiting animals in a big way. Now, identity threat is a proper psychological term for it. I'm not sure if I did link the paper there, but there was a paper about that, how it threatens the identity of the meat eater. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think you did. It was a direct science link. I think it was.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and just actually on that, because Deb's just saying that's prevalent here, and meat is masculine. I think that whole identity, there is very much a masculine identity. Oh, hey, Fantail. Hello. There's very much that masculine identity, isn't there? That very real man, eat meat, and all of that kind of stuff that goes on with that. So yeah, that does feed into what you were saying.
And then seeing vegans as, not being masculine, that type of thing, and then all the kind of insults that go with that as well. Yeah,
and Carol Adams refers to the opposite of that as feminized protein, I believe.
Right. Yeah.
Terry's saying a cat who isn't
Brian. Yes. I know. Brian's cuddled up on the bed with his sister, so Fantail's got a little time on the show today. So yeah, this is Fantail.
It's a shame, really, because I haven't been able to show this yet, but I'm still hopeful. We used to show that just virtually every week, didn't we? I think
we did actually. Yeah, he used to come and just sit here, didn't he, and just.
So Benny, another one of your recent posts, right, is this one. So what made you pick this particular weirdness from Trump rather than every other million things he's done in the last few days?
Yes, I think quite a lot of people will have seen, was it Bishop Budd? I'm not sure the pronunciation, but they made a quite good speech while Trump and his cronies had to sit through it, squirming. One wonders what they would be, the faces on them, if Jesus was actually doing the Sermon on the Mount and talking about giving your shirt off your back to poor people, and that type of thing.
He'd be going fake news or something, wouldn't he? But
I mean, if they've actually ever read the Sermon on the Mount, I think Trump might have actually written more books than he's read, so I wouldn't hold out much hope on that.
Oh right, yeah. Okay, ghost written them anyway. I don't know whether you saw the video where you saw the reactions of the Trump people and everything. The look of hatred in their eyes, it really affected me. I mean, it's a cliche, but kind of if looks could kill, this woman won't be around now. I mean, they were just looking total daggers at her all the way through.
If he had the power he wanted, I'm sure she'd be on some sort of list. Well, I'm sure she's blacklisted now anyway. Yeah.
Do you know she's getting death threats now?
Yeah, I did see a video with her saying, and even in that she was quite magnanimous about it all, and still just asking for kindness, really. I mean, it's come to something when you're asking for mercy, kindness, empathy, and that's receiving hate. I think that's how far we've kind of fallen as a society, really, and especially on social media.
I wondered whether the prompt for you was that, I mean, obviously we, from a rights-based point of view, we don't tend to use words like mercy, beg for mercy and stuff, but we are asking for, kind of caring and kind of, empathy and that kind of stuff. I mean, blimey, if they can't do it when they're just being talked to very softly by a bishop, it makes you wonder, doesn't it?
There was another post saying, I don't go to church for a lecture either, and someone had put, that's what a sermon is.
Yeah.
I used to go to a Catholic church every week, and that's what you'd be expecting.
Yeah, isn't it funny how there's a lot of talk about freedom of speech among the kind of right wing at the moment, like not losing the freedom of speech. And yet as soon as they hear something that they don't like, then it's like, let's shut this woman down. We want it. Because straight after, I remember hearing Trump was interviewed and saying, it wasn't very exciting, was it? It was very, wasn't very exciting, wasn't very good. And then obviously all the stuff that's come after that, the vitriol against them. But I thought it was quite telling.
Indeed, yeah. Well, the right wing have their own versions of identity politics and cancel culture, but they just don't call it that, you know.
Yeah, she should have said, it's the way I tell them. She should have said that at the end of it and make it more entertainment.
Well, Oscar Wilde did say, if you're going to tell people the truth, be sure to make them laugh or they'll kill you.
Oh, right, yeah. So just going to go through a couple of these. Now, this is from about an hour ago on your Facebook page, Benny. So apologies for crashing in on you. But you posted something about research from Australia, I think, saying that camel milk is healthier for humans than cow's milk.
Yeah, this was, I posted without comments really, because that was just quite a recent one. So it's just really, that'd be, you know, to look at the comments and people thinking, oh, isn't it a bit strange to drink camel milk? And it just kind of shows our conditioning a bit, really, that we might say camel milk is strange, but
that's right. Yeah.
Cow's milk is fine.
And then this one, this comes up in your books. So this woman is saying that they went vegan, and then they're no longer vegan, and they're basically saying the reason, I think anyway, was that they think that there's too much pressure on individuals, vegan individuals. So it was an unusual kind of ex-vegan argument, this. It's because there's too much pressure on me, whereas it should be put on the corporations. And there's a big round of applause in the audience. And you, in the book, you take the opposite view, I think. Is that right? That you,
I do. I'd take the opposite view of it for it to be an excuse. And I think she's rationalising her decision there. You know, I don't think you can abrogate everything onto corporations. Certainly, corporations do have a responsibility as well. But in the book as well, I go over there's quite a lot of memes and people sharing things about, you know, 71% of pollution and things come from just, you know, 5 corporations or whatever. But that needs a lot of fact checking as well. It's kind of, I don't believe in totally getting rid of individual responsibility, especially onto corporations. And anyway, even if we did do that, it's still not going to work, because you'd have, even if corporations and governments changed overnight, where are we going to be left as individuals? We would still have to, you know, keep up pace with that change. And you'd be like saying, okay, so this organization should go plant-based and this corporation should go plant-based. But then it's going to leave a lot of the public kind of, you know, not being able to keep up with it.
You can see that with the plant-based universities campaign, actually, in that there's a lot of pushback against that, even from kind of universities where it's been, you know, they're trying to bring in this policy of plant-based eating within the campus and stuff.
You mean from the students, Wendy?
Yeah, I think some people are like the anti campaigners, basically saying how it's not leaving choice, you know, we're taking choice away and all of that kind of thing. And it's basically in another subject that you mentioned in the book as well, Benny, is that forcing opinion. It's that thing of like, well, we're forcing our opinion on the students by having this policy and not allowing the choice. They can't make the choice. So I think there is definitely a lot of pushback on that. So
that would be an example. You know, let's say you did change that cafeteria. That would be an example of system change. But then if you're not bringing all the individuals along with you, then that system change isn't going to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a cafe always having soya milk ready for somebody to order it, and nobody does. So I agree with what Chase said, which is you need both. I mean, I agree with that as a sociologist, that you need the macro and the micro together. You know, the idea of isolating one from the other is a bit weird to me.
Yeah, so putting all the blame on the corporations is what I don't agree with. I do agree with it's both, really. And you kind of think of it as top-down level and then bottom-up level. Bottom-up would be the individual change, individuals talking to each other, each individual making a change. But also with that, I don't think veganism is strictly individual anyway. It is personal in the sense that it's a change that you make as an individual, but really it's a collective boycott as well. We're trying to, you know, as vegans, we're trying to be part of a society and be a collective as well, and have that collective power of getting to, you know, there's all these different figures get bandied about, get to say 3% of the population to have more impact. Some say 10%, some say 20%, to get to a kind of tipping point where you can start to influence public discourse a lot more. And you think about, if we're only 1 to 3% at the moment, how much we do kind of manage to dominate a lot of news cycles as well. Maybe not in a wholly positive way, but I think when we're in debates, we tend to win them. And the arguments for the other side are shown to be pretty weak.
I have another question for you, Benny. On your book, you're very thorough. By the way, I definitely recommend everyone read this book. You're very thorough on the fallacies, the logical fallacies that non-vegans will come out with during conversations, debates. You break things down into what the fallacies are. You know, you give examples, and you're quite thorough on that throughout the book in different ways. I've just got a question for you in terms of, if we focus all of our advocacy on logic and reason, does that leave out the emotional part of actually, as humans, we are emotional creatures and we do make decisions from emotion, and then we tend to layer on reason afterwards and justify our decisions. So I find, these things are great for like debates and coming back on people's, challenges to vegans. But how do we get them to actually care? Because I find you can have these like arguments from the head and you can go back and forth. Oh, but what about this? Yes, but what about this? And you kind of, and in the end, the person might even agree with you and go, well, yeah, you're right, but it is what it is. I'm still going to carry on eating meat. I'm still going to carry on. And it's like, what do you think with all these how can we put all of this logic and reason and also bring in the emotion and try to get people on a different level as well and get them to actually care enough to change?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it ties back into what Roger was saying about empathy as well. You can't just have the logic and the argument side of it. There does have to be some empathy there. And it's something we discussed as well, Wendy, with Mile and Engel Jr.'s approach, where you try and find something people already care about and something they already agree with. And then that's kind of your foothold into it. So with a lot, and you kind of extrapolate from there, really, kind of in an overlapping sense. So let's say people do care about dogs, and then you might say, well, why do you care about dogs? And is it for kind of direct duty reasons? In terms of, does what happens to that dog matter to that dog, or is it because that dog is of some use to someone else? And then you might get them to agree that, well, because a dog has the capacity to suffer, is sentient, that type of thing, and dogs have their own interests, then obviously what happens to them matters to them, kind of thing, to use Tom Reagan's kind of words. So if they're on board with all of that, from there you should be able to kind of overlap into other animals. I think maybe trying to get them to think about pigs is a good one, because pigs and dogs are actually quite similar in a lot of ways. And then from there, you might be able to keep overlapping into different animals, and then use kind of vegan arguments, kind of almost like the name the trait type of arguments. Like, okay, then, well, why is it true for a dog but not true for a pig? And why should we grant rights to a dog but not to a pig? That type of thing, and get them to try and name what the difference is specifically in that way. Then that's starting to use the logic and build on the empathy they might already have for one animal.
Many times, though, they agree when we say all this stuff. And you can see that they actually believe that we are right, that there is no a difference between a pig and a dog that would justify killing the pig and rescuing the dog. And yet, at the end of the conversation, many times I hear, yes, but that's the world, that's the situation. What do you think is that? Do you think that this is, people with, not really strong moral values, disempowered people that think that cannot make a change? What do you think is this, this thing that makes some agree with you and then go vegan, and the majority agree with you but do nothing about it?
Yeah, I've had a few cases like that where people are like, I can't really argue with what you're saying, but I'm still not going to change. And I think it's that kind of, kind of apathy in a way, or they think they're not going to make a difference. I think that there is quite a bit of despondency there. They think at the moment vegans are quite marginalized and quite disliked really in society. And really that kind of logical line of questioning is kind of looking for consistency. So I kind of don't believe them really when they say, okay, then, well, I don't really care about anything. Because I think that's kind of what's called going nuclear. You just kind of lay waste to everything and say, right, I don't really care about anything then. In that kind of consistency test, then they're saying, well, in order to still be consistent, I'm just going to say I actually don't care about anything, which is why it's good to try and nail them down, first of all, to say what they do care about, and maybe get them to say, well, actually, I do care about these animals, and I do care about this happening to these animals as well, and then they can't really back out of it later on. Obviously, that's quite a long process, and it's quite involved, most conversations will just be people, where you kind of wish, I wish you just said you don't care at the beginning, because you can go through all that, and then at the end they'll just say, I don't actually care. So try and get them on something at the beginning, I would say. And then
I think nailing down non-vegans has been frowned upon, though, apparently.
Well, it's very difficult, yeah.
Sadly.
Use one of those pneumatic drills type thing.
Yeah.
There was a bit in the book. I can't find it, so apologies for leafing through there.
It's page 463, I think.
You had
Benny will remember. Benny will know.
Yeah. It was on the basis of, because you said that there's this saying which is often translated as something else. It's basically something about you can't reason somebody out of something that they weren't reasoned into. And when I read that, I was really interested, because Wendy and Nella have been talking about the kind of, the feminist critique of kind of rationality without, emotions and all that kind of stuff. So I wondered whether that kind of plays into it, because, like, I mean, if you can't do that, what can you do?
Well, that saying was attributed to Jonathan Swift.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't think he worded it like that, but over the centuries, it kind of got distilled into that.
You had it worded twice in the book.
Ah, right. Yeah.
Because you said, Jonathan Swift said,
Yeah.
which is often translated as. That's how you put it.
Yeah.
So,
but I think with animal consumption and animal exploitation, it's something we're just brought up with. It's almost like, you know, parallel to kind of religions and other things that we're just kind of could be indoctrinated into without ever really making a conscious decision about it. I think, you know, someone used to have the question, when did you decide to start eating animals? You know, or I think it might have been Joaquin Phoenix, actually. You know, kind of at what age did you decide to start exploiting animals, we could say, you know, that type of thing. And did any of us actually make a conscious decision to start doing it? Or was it just the way we were brought up and then we got
it's a good question.
Decondition ourselves,
Yeah, it's a point I made in my PhD. I said that by the time we become moral agents, we're already involved and have been for years.
Yeah, it's a process of, you know, learning how to be vegan and navigating that type of side of it, but it's unlearning things as well. It's unlearning speciesism.
Yeah, but it's unlearning from people who are very important to you, like your parents, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. People that you're brought up to see as authority figures, and they're telling you need to eat meat or you will die in 2 weeks. That type of thing, you know. You believe
even if you have a salad.
You believe what your parents tell you, you know, and actually a lot of the arguments people come up with, they probably haven't thought about, or they've never been confronted with vegan arguments. So I think I do mention in this book, or maybe even How to Argue with Vegans, is they kind of go back to the age when they first learned to kind of, you know, use animals, kind of thing. Not going back to the age of where they were learning about how to exploit animals. They just kind of go back to an age of, you know, kind of childish arguments, really. Well, I'll do what I want. I'm more powerful than animals. You can't tell me what to do. They're all quite childish arguments, really. And I think it's kind of a reversion to that age of when they were just taught, well, you know, just eat your dinner and
it's a bit petulant, isn't it? Kind of, you're not the boss of me. You know, it's kind of,
exactly,
it's a bit kind of juvenile, isn't it? Really,
it is.
Yeah. You know,
also,
and when they think, sorry, Wendy.
Sorry, go ahead. No, so carry on, Roger.
I just think when they think culturally, that's when they go back to those early learning books as well, because they've got the comfort of then having this wonderful free range, you know, and nothing really bad happens and all that. And so they're just taking refuge in some kind of scrap of information that they had in the past somewhere.
Yeah. The arguments haven't been updated and they've not really thought about it, I don't think so. Oftentimes, that kind of anti-vegan talking to you, it could be the first time they've actually had to think about the subject. And I know maybe we're going to talk about the forcing idea as well. For me, the way I thought about it was, it's not so much that we're trying to force people to be vegan, which is not in our power. You know, it's nice for them to think, I've got that power to make people vegan, which of course I haven't. I think that feeling of force, it's the cognitive dissonance that they're feeling, perhaps, and also the force from the force of the argument, that they're being made to think about something they don't really want to think about. And as Swift said, you know, something they've not been reasoned into. They've not gone step by step thinking, I need to exploit animals because ABC. It's just what is coming naturally to them. So this is the first time there's been kind of any opposition to it, anything trying to jolt them out of that, really.
Yeah, because as well as authority figures, like you were saying, you know, our parents, and then authority figures like people at, you know, school, these institutions that we feel are authoritative. But there's also I think the power of our socialization and the fitting in is huge. It's massive, isn't it? Because I think as vegans, we're definitely alienated from our own culture. And I think that's not to be taken lightly as well. And I think that force of fitting in and being part of your culture and this is how it is, and this is how my parents and their parents and their parents, we just do it like this. It's almost unquestioned, isn't it? But it's a very powerful force. And I think maybe that what you were saying about the force being something, people having to face something they haven't thought about before, I think it's also that it's almost like making them turn to look at this great power that is over them, and maybe they become aware of that then as well, this powerful force that they're in, and it's, you know, controlling their lives and controlling their programming and everything, their behavior, their thoughts.
You mean cultural speciesism, do you, Wendy?
Oh, it could be, couldn't it?
Yeah,
It's
the
also,
peer pressure is really powerful. Yeah.
It's also.
Oh, hey, we got Joanne. We got Joanne there. Hey, Jo.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Joe.
Joe.
That's a rare appearance. I was thinking about the shaming vegan parents get, and the critique they don't give their children a choice. I mean, everyone is ready to jump on them and say you don't give your child a choice, as if when you're socializing them in eating other animals, you give them a choice. And practically,
Exactly,
yeah, it's not.
None of us got a choice, did we?
Yeah, because you can always start eating flesh if you choose to do so as an adult, but you cannot undo your past as a kid and not eat the animals you have eaten. So it's not even the same.
Yeah, and no one wants to stand out either, do they? So with going vegan, you're definitely making yourself stand out at the moment, and I think, you know, perhaps it does take a little bit of kind of character. You know, we often say, "Oh, being vegan isn't anything special," but I think given the kind of way society is, it does take a little bit of character and, you know, a little bit of willingness to go against the grain and put up with a little bit of abuse and trolling, and even just
that's what that woman could be
it.
saying about pressure on an individual. It's a pressured situation. It's as though it's you against this big wall of cultural speciesism kind of thing. And so I suppose for an individual, that is quite a thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, and people often think, oh, you're doing it to make yourself feel better, or feel, you know, better than other people. And well, I don't think that's true either, because we want everyone to be vegan. So it's not like we're trying to be special and stand out. A lot of us are quite, you know, reluctant, kind of, you know, we'd rather not be speaking about a lot of things, really, but we kind of feel a duty to do so.
Do you think, you know, Benny, you were saying how you were saying about people who consume our fellow animals identify like that, like we were saying about certain places in the world, certain cultures, masculinity and all of that. Do you think that that also works for vegans as well? Do you think that there are that as vegans we become to identify as vegans, and that becomes our identity as well? Do you think that works both ways?
Yeah, I think it's part of it is an identity you adopt in order to signal that you're vegan, and it's obviously a shorthand, quick way of expressing what your ethics are, what your stance is, rather than having to explain it every time. It's just that kind of shorthand of, I'm a person that rejects the commodity status of animals, rather than having to say that every time and explain things. Well, if that was the general understanding in society, people would know what your stance
Everybody
was.
got to get their vegan tattoos out now, have we?
It is
have you got one?
Yeah.
No.
You haven't got one, have you?
I was having a bit of a midlife crisis. I was thinking of getting a tattoo. I haven't got any tattoos. I was thinking of getting
I've never liked them. I've always disliked them, actually.
Yeah. I was going to get because I got a bit of a burn scar on my wrist, so I thought, I might try and cover up that area with like.
That'll do. That's my tattoo. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's where my watch goes at the moment. So
we did the usual thing. I was thinking this morning that we haven't got enough questions, and as usual, we've got too many. So I've got to pick my last one. I got to pick this is like a movement question, one of my favorite things, obviously. I wanted to ask you this thing about practical and practicable, because I think it's really interesting within the movement. But your section about that starts with expectations, and understanding that the principle behind veganism sets up expectations for beliefs, attitudes, language, and actions. The expectation of serious commitment to lifestyle change is set up as a sincerely held ethical position is not something one can drop on a whim. And then you move into the differences then between the practicable and the practical, and I think it has in recent years seems to have caused some issues in the movement, certainly with people like Alex O'Connor. When he was moving to an argument against veganism, he was really pushing this thing about practical and all this kind of stuff. And I got this really interesting thing from a dictionary. So practicable is workable, achievable, attainable, feasible. Practical is pragmatic and useful and sensible. And this really, I've not seen this. I wonder whether you've seen this. This is a way of explaining the difference. It says, for the purpose of ordering coffee in a Parisian cafe, as we do, right? It would be practical. It would be practical, that is useful, to learn some French. But it still might not be practicable for somebody with a busy schedule and not very much time. And so, I just wonder whether, because some people just use those phrases interchangeably, and I've seen practical used more than practicable nowadays, I wonder whether that's kind of caused confusion. Do you think that's true?
I think that is true, and I think there was kind of a bit of a push from quite a few vegans to, maybe drop it from the definition, and because it does, I think just people read over it quickly, and then you could just see it as being practical rather than what it does actually say, practicable. So, but we all know about the Paris exemption, of course. So, it might not be practical for you to order the soy milk in your coffee when you're there.
One of the practical, but practicable.
That was Peter Singer's exemption.
Aren't both objective? Well, there's kind of like an objective definition. So,
I do like what you said there, though, with the distinguishing between them. Yeah, I think practicable is it able to be put into practice? So really, that's what you're able to do. Whereas the practical kind of does seem to have that more wishy-washy in a way, kind of sense of, well, it just wasn't convenient for me to do that day, kind of thing.
I think that everyone understands the definition, though. I mean, even the first time I read it, I thought, oh, practical, it probably means feasible. I mean, if you know a little about veganism, you know what it means. It sounds like a lot of excuse around that issue. Obviously, going for a holiday and not finding something tasty and vegan to eat, it doesn't mean that you should eat less. I mean, it's not about convenience, and I think this is pretty clear to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's why there was that kind of push to maybe adapt that part a little bit, because it was leading to that confusion. And really, I think I say in the book, that bit is just meant to be kind of an ought implies can kind of clause, really, because one of the things we might get as vegans is, what if people absolutely can't be vegan in certain situations or whatever? So it's kind of just a clause for that, really. That's the way I saw it in the definition. It was never intended to be. Well,
but that's what makes it a movement issue, though, isn't it? Because if people translate it down, as it were, to practical, it gives them a get out of jail free card type of thing. Yeah, and I think, as I said, I think Alex O'Connor did that.
Yeah, that's definitely not the intention behind it.
No.
More of like, it's to make the definition kind of non-dogmatic in a way.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Benny, I have maybe a weird question for you. I see your posts, I read your posts on social, and sometimes I think, how much time does this take? You know, and to read the comments and maybe answer, and how much it gets to you, because you get a lot of pushback, and sometimes it's like really nasty stuff, or absurd stuff.
Yeah, it's I must say it doesn't get to me as much as it used to. When I first went vegan, and a lot of that was, friends were commenting, and I think it's always more difficult to talk to a friend in real life about these type of things than some stranger, in New Zealand, let's say, or Australia. So that's definitely more difficult, and that's what made it quite difficult at the beginning. It might be the same questions, but you're going to be typing something, and for me, I was always kind of having to hold back and take it easy on my friends, really, because I've never been the type to kind of go in for the kill or try and destroy someone on the internet or anything like that. I try and bring the person with me. So I'll try and maybe show them where their argument isn't good. And obviously I have failed at this over the years. I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, but to try and bring the person along, you've got to say, do you think maybe that's a bad argument, perhaps? Maybe drop that argument and let's see if there's a better way of expressing it. And do you think this is a more valid argument from the vegan side? And then give them room to kind of change, really, go away and think about it. In terms of like the personal effect on me, it can be stressful, but I think I've got quite a good sense of humor to try and deal with it in that way. If you can kind of bring people along that way as well, to show that you've got a sense of humor and show that you have got the logic as well.
Yeah, breaking vegan myths is a good thing. Yeah, that, and also the one above that, Wendy. Question for you, Benny. There we go. Do you think non-vegan sympathizers, Melanie Joy's allies, I suppose, help the movement?
I'm not sure how much they are sympathizers. I think this is more of a reducitarian thing than a vegan thing, because another thing in the book is kind of looking at the difference between categorical values and numerical values. So the kind of whole kind of utilitarian, reducitarian thing is more of a numerical value. And I think that's perhaps what Joy might be talking about with the sympathizers, because I don't really see where they are actually sympathizing with veganism. If you take veganism as that categorical value of rejecting the commodity status of animals. I mean, I've kind of tried to ask Brian Cateman, the founder of reducitarianism, and other people that say this type of thing. They will tell you, "Oh, I'm on your side," and it's all ending the battle between vegans and everyone else, and that type of thing. But I don't really buy into it, because I don't think they really are on board with veganism. I think if they were on board with veganism and didn't see animals as objects or resources or here for their utility, then they would be vegan, because you would be rejecting that view of animals, and that would entail going vegan. So I'm not sure how much you can actually be sympathizing with veganism if you don't.
Didn't Cateman give himself away, didn't he, on the TED talk? Because he announced that he was a vegan, and then about 5 minutes later he goes, "Actually, I'm not a vegan," and he went, "Phew!" Right? I mean,
yeah.
There's no sympathy there, right? So, well,
that's it. It's setting vegans up to be, kind of for ridicule, basically there, and the audience. The whole thing is meant to be, well, at least I'm not one of them vegans type of thing. So again, I don't really see where the sympathy is there. It's kind of a bit like, Corey Lee Wren's idea of the kind of free riding. They kind of want all the kind of rhetorical power of veganism without being vegan themselves. So they're kind of free riding on it a bit. That's the way I see it anyway.
And you were saying in the book, Benny, actually, if people are not on board with veganism, but they are, say, the reducitarians or flexitarians, if they're not on board with veganism, they should really just make way for vegans to say the vegan thing and not hinder us, which I think was a really good point, actually, because if you claim to be, okay, we're not actually vegans, but we're heading in that direction, why actually make fun of veganism in the first place? Like, actually, why not go, okay, we're not on the same page exactly, but if vegans are going to do their thing, let's them get on with it. But actually what sometimes they do is hinder us and put obstacles in the way and create like ridicule and you know, all of that stuff around veganism. So I thought that was a really good point you made.
They maintain that ridicule and the kind of myths about veganism being hard or being something unobtainable. Quite a lot of the talking points are about perfectionism, and that's really not what veganism is. It is that categorical position against animal exploitation, but in terms of that's the theory side, but then in practice it is that thing again of everyone's doing as much as they can, but we're not under any illusions that we're perfect or even aiming for perfection, and that comes into like the nirvana fallacies then as well, with like we're not saying it's perfect, we're saying it is this principle where you're rejecting using animals as resources, and then that obviously entails a lot of practical things. It entails a change in diet because you don't see animals as objects, and for me, reducitarians just haven't made that shift in mindset, so they're not on board really.
Yeah.
What do you make of this, Benny? Many non-vegans have told me they would support a law to ban slaughterhouses. They love animals, which to me doesn't mean anything really, but they lack the willpower to go vegan. And so, I mean, what's going on in the kind of social psychology here? They would support a ban, but they, so are they saying I would need to be forced, but I wouldn't be against it?
I think maybe it's that bit of they're looking at it as this, being against the system or the corporations again. At the moment, they think they lack the willpower to maybe go vegan individually, or they think it doesn't make a difference, that type of thing, where it's the individual versus systemic type of thing again. But I think they genuinely could be, thinking I am actually against what happens to animals and the way animals are viewed, but they just really haven't made that connection yet on an individual basis for whatever reason. And I think with Alex O'Connor, like you said, I think with him it was a lot of that thinking the individual doesn't make a difference type of thing. I think that's why he did kind of give up in the end.
And it's that thing, isn't it, where again we're talking about that force of cultural speciesism that you're in. The wind is behind you. It's much easier to keep going with business as usual, even if you have these thoughts of, oh God, it's not really great, and you have that cognitive dissonance. That's still easier, because turning around and swimming against that force is way, way harder. And you really have to connect to something morally deep within yourself to be able to do that as well. So I think, but I always wonder what would happen if the government just suddenly banned slaughterhouse and said, right, from tomorrow, no one's allowed to consume our fellow animals. I think there'd be an absolute uprising. For once, people would get off their arses, other than French people would get off their arses and really protest that. So
there'd be an instant so-called black market, wouldn't they?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think people would put up with it. I really just don't think they would, because it's like you've taken it. I think people really resent having things taken away from them. There's a real kind of psychological mindset with that, isn't there? Like something's being taken away from me, and they will very much rail against that.
It's the forcing again, and this is something really pushed by the likes of the Centre for Consumer Freedom and other type. You know, they were a big tobacco lobbyist, so you get into a lot of the arguments about personal freedoms, and that's what a lot of the kind of discussions are about. You know, vegans are trying to take this away from me. Okay, it would be that kind of Charlton Heston thing of over my cold dead hands, you know.
I thought you were going to do the Planet of the Apes one then for a minute.
Do you think that the people who use the I'll go vegan when everyone else goes, I won't resist, but I won't do it now, are the same people that they are denying to take you know, a personal responsibility about anything, the same people that won't do anything environmentally friendly if it's going to take some effort? They won't stop buying, I don't know, fast fashion, for example. They know what happens, but they don't believe that personal responsibility does anything. Are those the same
think
kind?
So, yeah. I think that definitely ties into the kind of environmental thing they think. And the trouble is, we do get a lot of stories about kind of recycling not being as effective as we thought it was. And there is a lot of greenwashing about a lot of these type of things. And people think, oh, well, it doesn't actually make a difference. But again, a lot of these kind of leftist accounts that you get on Instagram and the likes, they will push these arguments, obviously the systemic versus individual. And that'll be that kind of, the despondency will kind of come in there. But they kind of conflate environmental arguments with a vegan argument. Because, you know, like I say in the books as well, veganism isn't environmentalism, just as it isn't a diet. So even without the environmental effects, or, you know, it's better for the public health, that type of thing, even if it was the same as the current system for the environment and the same for health and everything, you would still have a direct duty to animals and still have a moral responsibility, I think, personally, not to be viewing animals as commodities and things and resources, which is, but the kind of these leftist accounts will conflate, or kind of do an equivocation as well, of saying, well, this is the environmental arguments, and veganism isn't actually effective there for the environment because these corporations still pump out this, or China is still doing this, India is still doing this, and what we do doesn't actually make a difference. Then the equivocation comes with then saying, well, veganism doesn't make a difference then. But where it does matter individually is, as an individual, you are saying whether you view animals as commodities or not. And even if, you know, even if it didn't make any difference at all, as an individual, the line I draw personally is that I do not view animals like that. So I would still draw that line, no matter what anyone else is doing. And if that's within my power to do and speak up about it, that's what I will do personally, irregardless of, you know, I nearly said irregardless then, regardless of everything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
How are you doing for time, Wendy?
I can't hear Brian scratching at the door yet, but he's usually going, wait, what time would you call this?
He's got his own watch.
He's got his own watch. He does seem to know the time really well. Like he's usually sitting there ready before the alarm goes off. Quite funny.
They do know the time, because I was feeding a street living cat, and she kept the appointment every day. She would appear at midnight exactly, like 5 minutes, you know, maybe late, maybe, but I was really amazed by that, and that went on for months.
But the latest research on dogs, you know, our dogs tell the time. They've never really been sure, you know, do dogs actually hear their owner coming in the distance, or kind of like hear a car door slam maybe in the distance, and you can always kind of rule a lot of these things out. Do they kind of know what time it should be? But I think the latest thing they think it is actually the kind of the sense of the person they're waiting for kind of goes away over time. So as that sense coming to maybe zero, they're thinking, you know, this is kind of the time they should be coming in. I think that's actually the latest research on it. So it's more to do with smell than.
No, it's to do with the degree of sense that.
Yeah, the degree of sense.
And then normally comes back, and then you go, oh, it's getting to, okay,
yeah.
That's almost like what they call it, you know, the thing, the sand
egg
thing.
timer kind of thing. Yeah, a sand timer, for vegans.
It's amazing. I know, Jeremy, when you said what kind of research, whenever you hear, do you know when you read books and you hear these really amazing things about our fellow animals, and then you think, oh, bugger, what have they had to do to those poor individuals to get that information? And then you feel really bad for even wanting to know the information. You know, you get that all the time. Whenever you hear like research, you just think, what are they doing? But it's amazing, like it's that we can think, we see the world in such a human-centric way that we think we know everything. You can't help it. Somehow, even though you tell yourself, you know, I know nothing, but you can't help but see the world in that way. But when you really step back a little bit and just go, I have no idea how a dog experiences this world. Absolutely no idea. And maybe I'll never know. We can only guess at things and, you know, surmise. But there's something really thrilling about that. I actually love that. And just coming out of that human hubris and anthropocentrism for a moment and just thinking, wow, this world is completely different for other species, other individuals.
Yeah, we're not the only ones experiencing the world, and animals, of course, have got a lot of senses that we haven't. You know, we can't see as many colours as a lot of them can. We can't hear a lot of things that they can. They've got senses, you know, we will never have. Like Henry Beston said in one of my favourite pieces, you know, they kind of moving through the world with senses that we will never have. Chickens see more colour than us. Pigeons sense magnetism that we can't sense. You know, that type of thing. There's a whole world out there of sensory experience that we just haven't got.
One of the first videos I ever made or co-made was for Vegan Island, and we tried to visualize how chickens visualize the world, you know, by adjusting it. It was obviously very vivid, and you know, and also, you know, like things like a petal on a flower. They would see a hell of a lot more detail than we do. Yeah,
bees see the ultraviolet pattern, and when you look at a lot of flowers, it's almost like a landing strip for the bee. So it's like, come in this way, and here's your airport landing strip, and then that's what it looks like, ultraviolet. And these are things we're only just discovering, but that's the way bees see it. Yeah.
And also, you do wonder, like, how do they see the human world? Because, like, what the hell do they make of us? Do you know what I mean? I often think that one, even when I look at like the cat people who live here, the Dylan dog person, I just think, what do you make of us? Like, what, you know? What? I know, this like clumsy ape kind of person who's giving them food and stroking them. Are they thinking, oh, this is a bit weird, but I'll go with it. I'll go with the grub.
You know, 10 hours a day. You know?
It's kind of what we make of them, though, as well, because I saw this on TikTok last night, and you know, humans will go out of their way to diminish our fellow animals in terms of their capacities, in terms of their communication abilities. I mean, I'm not quite sure whether they deny all that list that you just went through, but they're pretty keen on diminishing it, or it doesn't mean anything. There's no moral import to it. You know, we just seem to have this need to make lesser, you know, our fellow animals.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I think that's part of the victim blaming kind of thing, because after all, if you know, to morally rationalize it, if you say, well, first of all, there isn't a victim, you could say, you know, totally be in that kind of denial, or, well, it's actually not that bad. They don't have the same kind of experience as we do. It doesn't affect them as much. But when you see a cow grieving for their calf and that type of thing, a lot of animal emotions could actually be more intense. For goats as well, you know, we talk about that overlap with dogs. So we know that dogs experience great attachment and kind of, you know, emotions. This is another experiment, Wendy, I'm afraid, but I don't think it was a harsh one or anything. So they looked at the levels of oxytocin in dogs, and then they looked at the levels, this is the hormone for like love, basically, and attachment kind of thing. And then they looked at it in goats, and it was this goat that had become attached to a dog. And when the dog missed the goat, there was a certain level of the oxytocin. But when the goat missed the dog, the level was way higher. You're talking like 4 times higher. So what that goat was experiencing was a greater level of, you know, what we would term love or affection for that dog. You know,
they try and downplay it by saying it's imprinting and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Right? So it's always a question of making it lesser, you know, making it simpler.
Yeah.
You know,
diminishing and
behaviorism and trivializing it. Yeah. You look at pigeons, you know, they mate for life, and when I see a pigeon couple in the garden, and you can't help but see that affection. They're grooming each other. They mate for life. You know, the pigeons at the back here have tried building nests. Unfortunately, they're not that great at building nests because of, you know, pigeons were domesticated and then they've kind of been put out into the world and left to fend for themselves, kind of thing. So their instinct would have been to build like a nest on a cliff edge or that type of thing, where it would have been perfectly fine, but the situation they find themselves in, you know, is not ideal. So that's another way we kind of victim blame them, you know, oh, they're not great at building nests. That's the same with cows, the victim blaming there, they're not great mothers.
Yeah.
The same with pigs. We need to put them into stalls because they're not great parents. They will crush their children, but it's always the situation we've put them in, and then we're blaming them for it.
Totally disgusting, isn't it?
Yeah.
To have a mother having their baby taken away from them repeatedly and then claiming they're not a very good mother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A recent picture I shared from Keneally, forget her first name, is it Jennifer? But she put a picture of a farrowing crate with the pig, and she'd said she'd watched the pig mother. It's literally only her eyes could move, and you know, she was watching the piglet walk around. And pigs, if they can, they will build a nest, and they will be good mothers. You know, when they're on a sanctuary, and they can get into the woods and that type of thing, they'll collect branches, twigs, and straw, and they will make a nest. Then they will have the piglets, and you know, they get on fine, and it's.
And don't they sing? Don't they sing to their?
They do, yeah. They sing to their piglets, and it's all about.
Yeah.
But this particular pig was trapped in the farrowing crate, and she couldn't actually move to be able to communicate to her piglet to do anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw, just to bring it back to a little bit of a more positive before, because I'm sure we have to go soon. And Jeremy was saying, way to bring it back to a height. So we're going to try, Jeremy.
Just a way of having a go at me, that was.
Is that what it is? I saw a video the other day, and it was just a collection of instances where our fellow animals were tasting freedom for the first time. And it was the most uplifting, joyful, but also tinged with that sadness of, what have they been through up to this point? But then that the joy that they were experiencing, and just out and out expression of joy and freedom. And it was just so heartwarming, and yet so kind of sad, thinking they shouldn't have to like go through the things that they do, and they should just be free or not here, as we know.
It's kind of the situation they're put in physically with, you know, obviously confinements, but also it's the way they're bred as well, you know, so their body ends up being kind of a cage in a way for them as well. And that often happens for hens. The animals live a lot longer, you know, than obviously they are kind of designed in a way to live. So will develop a lot of difficulties. And I always liked the Free From Harm article that was kind of about expanding our kind of understanding of harm, because people would be asking, well, what's wrong with backyard hens and eggs and that type of thing? But we're breeding hens to lay an egg every day instead of what they would do in nature, which might be, you know, 5 or 6 at a certain time of year, and that would be it then, you know. It's all the genetic engineering and kind of human selection, artificial selection, to make their bodies suit us rather than them, which is quite astounding when you think about it. And it's the same for dog breeding, any sort of animal breeding, really. Who are we breeding those bodies for? And it's that kind of entitlement that we think that their lives, their bodies, their families belong to us instead of belonging to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a fundamental moral atrocity, isn't it? Is that abuse of their bodies. It's the so-called breeding into existence in the first place in order to gratify a human desire. I won't say need, because that's absolute shite. Human desire, and just taking away their agency and their autonomy. So it's not just the right to live, it's the right not to be used in the first place to create other lives. And I think we don't really speak a lot about that in the movement as well. We talk about the right to live, and they have the right to their life and their freedom, but actually there's a lot more to discuss around that freedom, isn't there?
Imagine not even owning your own body. You know, you've been bred into existence, but that life doesn't really belong to you. That body doesn't really belong to you because it's for the utility of someone else. You know, as humans, we've always got our eye on that end product. We've got our eye on them as commodities rather than seeing them as individuals. And that, to me, is what the fundamental thing is. It's seeing them as commodities rather than the individuals they are.
It feels like in the future we may get calmer as AI progresses. We may one day find ourselves in that position in a similar or even different way.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to educate AI at the moment, you know, to not see us like that. So. any chats to chat GPT or anything, and you know, trying to well, basically chat GPT to agree to be vegan. I'm not sure if that could spread as a virus through artificial intelligence, but yeah, that basically all human horror stories are, you know, someone more powerful than us, whether it's aliens, artificial intelligence, treating us the way we treat animals or treat others in a lot of cases.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, should we? Is this a good moment? Well, Benny, it's been great. Highly recommend the book. It is well written, and there's loads and loads in there. So highly recommend the book. So
where can people get it, Benny?
Well, it's on Amazon. So thanks for that, Roger. I appreciate that. It's on Amazon. 2 5-star reviews at the moment. So if anyone wants to leave a review,
is there anywhere other than Amazon we can go?
Not at the moment, but if people are, you know, objecting to Jeff Bezos and his evil empire or anything like that, then just email me or contact me on social media.
And you'll bring down the evil empire.
Yeah. Failing that, I can send you a PDF of the book for no charge. I usually just ask for a donation to a animal sanctuary of your choice. And like Wendy says as well, you know, go to an animal sanctuary and see what animals are like when they're not being exploited. And then you might have a different view of them. That'd be my advice to non-vegans.
See the true person.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning in. Now, Nella, I believe you have a dedication. Is that right? You're muted.
Sorry. Yes. I would like to dedicate tonight's show to Bobo. Bobo was a male dog, the most exceptional dog I've ever met. I met him at the vet's clinic where I do my practice. He was an abused individual brought to us by volunteers. He has gone through the breeders, exploitation thing. And he was betrayed by humans so many times. And he kept being trusting, and he kept being trying, but he didn't make it. And in the month I spent with him, he taught me so much about non-human animals in a way that cannot be found in books. And he actually taught me how great non-human animals are, how many stories they have, a lot of stuff about their individuality and bravery, and how amazing they are, and how very often we betray them, and how very often we are too small and too little for them. So, Bobo, I will never forget you.
Thank you, Nella. Rest in power, Bobo.
And thanks for everybody who tuned in, and we'll see you again soon.